JPod. This is a podcast on journalists and journalism. I'm your host, Krishna Prasad. Although I have been an English journalist all my life, I'm a huge believer in the power of language media, not just Hindi, but every one of India's languages. Don't get me wrong, English media may be more professional. English newspapers and news channels may look good and command premium rates. And English journalists may seek all the publicity and get all of it. And they may think that they move the world, but the truth is vastly different in India. English media really counts for very little on the ground in the ultimate scheme of things. The greatest editor to have walked this country's soil, the editor in chief of Young India and Harijan Mahatma Gandhi, once said that the soul of India lives in its villages. You can extrapolate that quotation to the media and say that the soul of Indian journalism actually lives in its languages. Let me give you just one small example. In week 14 of the current calendar year, the top five English TV news channels had a combined viewership of 52 lakh impressions, according to BARC, the Broadcast Audience Research Council. In contrast, the top five Hindi channels had a combined viewership which was 284 times bigger than English. And the top five news channels in the South Indian languages had a viewership which is even bigger, 295 times bigger than English. In other words, English media is a tiny drop in the ocean, but an important drop. All that is just a preface to introduce my guest on JPod today, Mr. MG Radhakrishnan, the editor-in-chief of the Malayalam TV news channel Asianet News. Actually, calling Asianet News just a Malayalam news channel will not do any justice to its premier position in Indian TV journalism. It was the first private news channel to be launched in India just after the reforms began in 1991. So it was not NDTV or Aaj Tak or Z News, but Asianet News in Malayalam, which was first of the block. Much of Indian television has fallen by the wayside. And in fact, using the words TV and journalism is a big problem in the post-Arnab Goswami era, but not Asianet News. Although it has changed hands from its original owner, Asianet continues to be one of the few mainstream TV news channels across India to still cover news and information with some seriousness. So MG Radhakrishnan, in a sense, is the brain behind what is still India's best TV news offering. In a career spanning 38 years, Radhakrishnan has been a print and TV journalist, having worked for the Malayalam newspaper Mathrubhumi and the news magazine India Today. Radhakrishnan joins us today on JPod, and I welcome him very much. Mr. Radhakrishnan, it's a pleasure to talk to you. I know we've had to do this a couple of times for various reasons, but it's a pleasure to listen to you and to take your time on such a busy day in such, not so pleasant circumstances. And I thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you, KP. It's great to be with you.
Thank you. First up, let me ask you the most basic of questions. How has coronavirus affected you personally, and as things go with your family?
Well, as it is the case with everybody else, it's been an extremely unprecedented experience. So we are having to reorder our lives, as it were, personally as well as institutionally. So it's a complete paradigm change in life.
I see. How has it affected Asianet News? How has the virus affected Asianet News, its functioning, its programming? How has it changed?
Well, we have brought in some major changes in terms of our, work schedules. Like, we are working in 50% capacity now because 50, even less than that, as something like 35, 45, something like that. Ever since this lockdown has happened, so people are working from homes, and in terms of content also, we have made some major changes. Some of the current affairs, the longish kind of programs have been taken off, which have been replaced by bullet news, like hard news, hot news, and things like that. So it's been a complete change in terms of both content and in the form as well.
I see. I have very little understanding of Malayalam besides the most basic, but and I just watch the 9 p.m. news every night just to get a sense of peace in my own mind, the Asianet 9 p.m. news. But how has it changed the programming? In short.
Yeah, we have changed, but the kind of change that we have introduced are almost similar to what media institutions, media organizations across the world have done,
Right.
because it is COVID-19 all the way now, right from it's a 24-hour news channel, and almost all the bulletins are completely uh, full with information, news, and explainers, and backgrounds, history, etc., of COVID-19 or other epidemics which have visited in the humankind, which have ravaged India before, and it's all it's COVID-19 all the way.
Yeah, but 2 points here. You said oh, across the world, which means obviously you're looking at stuff from around the world. Where
Yeah.
are you looking for ideas and inspiration for your programming? From where are you looking, for inspiration?
Yeah, we've been as all of us, like journalists as well as Indians, we BBC is one of these the most watched international television channels by us, as it's been always the case. And then now we watch the channels like especially the American channels like the CNN or Al
Right.
Jazeera to get a feel about the Middle East, and even Russia today also is a popular channel here. So
So
these are the kind of
there's really
right.
no need for you to watch Indian news channels, obviously.
We do that too.
Yeah. That apart, this whole virus obviously is of a very different nature for Malayalam TV news channels because you are not just servicing viewers in India and in Kerala, but also a huge diaspora in the Gulf and in the United States. That obviously puts a whole new set of challenges in front of you. And secondly, the fact that so many of these stupendous nurses and doctors who are working around the world are from Kerala. So I presume your challenges are manifold different from what Hindi news channels or English news channels face in India.
Absolutely. As you said, the largest Indian diaspora in the Gulf is from Kerala. And they have been the most important, sort of target audience for us in terms of viewership, as well as, they are the backbone of Kerala's economy. So suddenly they are the most suffering lot now, because things have changed completely overnight with this COVID-19. Until then, there was supposed to be the most well-off, happy, prosperous people, at least the elite sections among them. Now
Absolutely.
suddenly cutting across this sections and classes among the diaspora, these people are having a very tough time, especially in comparison with the people in Kerala, because as you know, Kerala has been looking after this situation, taking care of this situation much more efficiently than anywhere else. But the
Yeah.
people who are the Malayalis who are caught, sort of, they consider themselves trapped in those foreign countries where they don't get that kind of help or service or assistance or healthcare and things like that, especially in people like in the Gulf and also even in the United States. The kind of SOS messages that we receive from them on a daily basis, on every day, and is extremely disturbing, because people, even well-off sections in major cities in the United States, like New York or California, those people are
Right.
really, they are actually trying their level best. They're beseeching us, they're requesting us every day to get the government to do something for them. They want to bring back their old people who got trapped, and people who have gone on visit visas. They are also trapped there, and
Right.
and not being brought back, because there is this flights are down. And even last week, just 2 days back, we had this SOS from United States, saying that in one of those people who are from Kerala have been seriously sick with an extremely terminal stage of cancer. So
Right.
they're not being taken care, they're not being cared. They want these air ambulances to be introduced. So, they want the help of an air ambulance. So these are These are the kind of issues. And nurses, as you said, they are the
Yeah,
frontline warriors in this fight, and they are the most suffering people also, because we get this disturbing news from different states where, as you said, the Malayali nurses have been working in almost every corner of the world, and in other states also, in some of the top line hospitals in Bombay and Delhi. We
yeah,
have we've been receiving complaints from that they're not being taken care of, they're being ignored, they're being neglected. So these are kind of extremely disturbing news, and people who have been helping us, who have been sort of taking care of us, taking care of Kerala's economy, Kerala's society. These are the people who are suffering most. It's
yeah,
extremely disturbing dimension of the whole epidemic
yeah,
for
yeah,
us.
yeah, yeah. Well, the thing that struck me when you said that all your programming has become COVID,
Yeah.
I was wondering very briefly, has this, what is your experience been? Are people seeking news and information alone, or are they seeking explanations and, views? What is it that they're seeking, you think?
Yeah, both. In fact, KP, that Kerala has always been one of these, the state of the news junkies, as it were, because,
Of course.
more than anywhere else in the state, in the country, people are actually, there was huge viewership for news television channels, and so the people are actually, all the other programs, and in fact, whatever programs we've been having, about 2 weeks back, 3 weeks back. Some of these programs we have actually changed them. We have actually taken them
Right.
off air to replace them with that. This thing. They are looking for news and information not just from the state, but from outside the states as well as outside countries. In fact, we have, stringers, we have, or even citizen journalists located in various capitals of the world. They're all sending us, amateur videos
Right.
about what's happening in Vienna, what's happening in Geneva, in Florence. So
Yeah.
these are actually very important for people in Kerala, because they're all watching that. And we have this, explainers, and also history of epidemics, the social history, the political history of epidemics, how it destinies of the world, how it
Yeah.
has actually upset emperors. Those kinds of programs also are being lapped up like anything. So
I
these are
see.
it's as and as it is the case everywhere. The one industry which has been which has been on the sort of on the rise in the when COVID ravages the economy is the news media, and which was actually ailing industry until now because of the cord cutting, streaming, and
Yeah.
all those things were actually ravaging the industry. But suddenly, from January onward, there's a huge spike, as you said in the beginning,
Yeah. Yeah.
of viewership, especially news channel viewership. But the irony is that it helps the ratings grow, but it doesn't bring in money at all because advertisements are coming down even for
Yeah.
television. Monies have
Right.
been deferred, payments have been deferred. So it's a peculiar predicament. The ratings and the subscriptions go up, but money
Correct.
is not correspondingly increasing.
No, you took words out of my mouth because I was just wondering about the relevance of journalism in these times as an English language journalist, because it seems to be that newspapers and magazines are suffering hugely, and you, on the other hand, have a very positive story of how it has changed for you. But
Right.
therefore, that question arises. You spoke of Kerala as a land of news junkies, or Malayalis as people of news junkies. So
Right.
therefore, the relevance of journalism has become more important, you think, in these times?
Absolutely. I mean, it can't be, explained more in the sense that, the importance and one another important thing, Kippy, is that, it's very important that we keep, these are times when the states, assume more power, more
Yeah.
surveillance operations, and, you have this trade-off with the fundamental rights. And these are things which we accept because
Right.
it's an extraordinary situation. You need extraordinary measures. But
Right.
what actually I think the media it's not yet. I mean, it's one thing that you help the state help the state governments to disseminate the correct information, to check the facts. But at the same time, it's very important that media in a democracy remains free, remains independent, and remains as a check and balance on the state power. So even in these kinds of situation, the inherent tendency of the state to assume more power,
Yeah.
it gets sort of there's manifestations of those. And I'm not blaming any government or any particular party for this, but unless the media has to sort of help the state, but at the same time it has to remain a very vigilant monitor that things are not
Absolutely.
going out of hand. For instance, in Kerala, we had this unfortunate incident of a police officer actually, crossing the line and punishing the people beyond the limit. And so I think so that was a situation when the media had to sort of criticize the
Right.
state and the police. And also, I think it is very important that it is not, this is not a time to get co-opted by the state. So we have to keep our powder dry, even this kind of situations. That is very important. That is makes our democracy and the free media thrive even in this kind of situations. That is very important. I think otherwise, what happened in some other places, and I don't know about some other states, but there are occasions when these are times when the media gives up its role of being a critical insider. I think this has to be done.
That's very well said. And unfortunately, the perils of talking to a good journalist is that you steal my lines. And you've already done it for the second time now, because I was wondering, whether media in Kerala had been critical, and you have actually answered that in a certain way. That it's been able to scrutinize government actions much better.
Exactly.
But when you, as a Malayali and as an editor in Kerala, sit and watch the national media in India, especially English or perhaps more so Hindi, what is the feeling you get when you watch what's happening just now?
I think it's generally the English media. I mean, I'm not watching the Hindi or other kind of other regional language television, but English media. I think, except barring certain exceptions, generally, I think the media is doing a good role. Even the English media is doing a good role, because this is the time. In terms of disseminating information and getting international panelists, international experts, and all. But
Yeah,
there are certain exceptions, of course, which are actually, as you have mentioned the
of
name
course,
already, and
of course.
so these are. But apart from that, I think Indian media is doing a good job, especially in English as well. I think I'm happy about it.
Have there been exceptions in Kerala? I mean, we can't talk of Asianet News as the benchmark for everybody. Surely there must
Yeah, but
be black sheep in
yeah,
Kerala too.
Yeah, I think with all its imperfections and warts and all, Kerala media has been doing an admirable job right through. Even when you see the tendency of the the so-called national English media, increasingly getting co-opted by the state, we would proudly say that the Malayali media, the Kerala media, has been, in spite of all its. I mean, I'm not saying we are the best, but at the same time, we definitely have been keeping our sort of critical monitoring role as much as possible. We have kept the powers to be on the hooks, and we have not let them go. And but at the same time, even now, this after the COVID thing, also, I think every television channel, every media, I know they have all risen to the occasion, and they've been disseminating information, and they have been critical as well. I think that is the most important. The best thing about Kerala is that you all kind of have you attend the whatever the government wants you to do, but at the same time, and the latest example is the state government's decision to hire an international data harvesting agency for this kind of for tracking and tracing tracking the incidents of COVID and all those things. But
Right.
normally this is something which is in this particular there's a huge debate going on in Kerala about this, whether this should not have been critiqued by the media. So the media has actually, has been very critical about certain, in certain ways in which the government went about doing this, because there's an issue of privacy, there's an issue of the private health data being, citizens' data being, the need to be private, and the data breach issue is that. So all these issues, the supporters of the government are very various media critics have been saying that this is a very extraordinary, extremely dangerous situation. So this is not the time for the media to sort of critique the government in doing this. But the Kerala media has been, true to its tradition, has been critical about that also. I think the government also has come out well in terms of, increasing its transparency. It has become, initially it was not quite, but after this criticism, after this round of debates and all, I think the courts also have stepped in. And now it has become more transparent. And that is the name of the game, isn't it, KP?
Yeah, yeah. No, it's wonderful to hear what you say, because the way you put it, it seems like that the government of Kerala, the judiciary of Kerala, and the media of Kerala, not to mention the healthcare facilities of Kerala, are a world apart from the rest of India.
Right. I think this is what makes the Kerala system work. Kerala is actually, it's constantly under scanner of the public, and constantly under, it's a literate society, it's a media saturated society. And one of the best good things about this, that there are many occasions when we always step across the line. We do what is not, whether we should do this much or not. There are doubts always expressed, but at the end of the day, this very system of the scanner being on, always on the society, on the state, on the government, on the powers to be, actually help Kerala to be what it is.
Excellent. That's well put. Let me come back to a point you mentioned, that you have not watched the Hindi channels. I'm a little surprised, but I'm presuming you are aware of what the Hindi channels have been doing. How do you view Hindi television in particular, the kind of openly communal overtones, it took even in a pandemic like this? Why has
Absolutely.
television, why has television become the primary vehicle of kind of communalism in this country, in the media?
Absolutely. I think media is always, media is a creature of the society. So whatever biases and prejudices and, that kind of thing that happens in that kind of, assumes hegemony in that society, media has this tendency to mirror that, because media is actually, as everybody knows, is a mirror that, that whatever happens in the society gets reflected in that. So a media always, not just a mirror, not just a creature or a vehicle, but always, reinforces the biases and values and the prejudices of the society. And Hindi, the kind of Hindi society or Hindi speaking society, as you know, it's now actually dominated by this kind of values and this kind of extremely sectarian and communal kind of values. And so media takes a lead in that. We have seen that during the the Babri Masjid movement. You have seen that in Gujarat. So this is something which is still continues to happen. So, and especially in times of epidemics, this kind of scapegoating is something which is quite familiar throughout history. So you want to, there was Jews who were actually sort of witch hunted for a long time for every epidemic that happened, whether it is cholera or plague or whatever it is. So you have this tendency to of the present day India, whether you have this kind of majoritarian communal kind of sentiments holding sway. So it's natural that this kind of society, the media in those kind of societies, reflect those extremely negative values. But in a state like Kerala, or generally in South India, actually we don't quite subscribe to this kind of ideological kind of sort of positioning. And so, at least for now, we seem to be even though we are outliers, we are happy outliers in this.
Yeah. No, I was saying that it seems to be that the persecutors of the Jews, in the past, have got some justice, but it seems to be that the communalization of Hindi media in particular has
Yeah.
no kind of no kind of oversight, nothing. It seems to be that it's a open season all the time.
Absolutely, but I think this has to pass. History has shown us that all these kind of the attitudes have actually met with the kind of the kind of reckoning when history moves ahead. So it might sound a bit sort of fatalistic, but I think I'm absolutely sure that this has to change, because even this COVID itself
Yeah,
has made actually the internationally, globally, people have started to think differently. The kind
absolutely.
of beliefs and the kind of the sort of debt certainties that they had until now have completely undergone some kind of major changes. Fundamental changes have happened. So
Yeah,
I think this also will have that kind of an impact in people's lives and people's perspective. Might take some time more, but I think this could actually accelerate things. Actually, I don't know whether it's going to, it's going to be the worst, or going to be some of the political scientists who have been writing about COVID, the kind of political changes. People have been saying that, now there seems to be, as Zizek said, there's a kind of a fancy for a new kind of communism right now. The Zizek, after this, there could be again a rise of the right wing politics, because there will be prejudices again reinforced against immigration. There could be othering of people. All
yeah,
those things could happen. So I don't know what is going to happen, but I think change definitely has to come.
yeah. Let me come to the penultimate question. I know I've taken enough time of yours. In brief, what are the three lessons you think Kerala news media and especially Kerala television media can offer to the country at a time like this?
Well, I think the most important lesson is that the to be with the people. Whenever you have you touch the real issues of people. I think the story of the kind of fear that the media is actually going out of currency, or those things will not happen. Only thing is, these are very these are issue. I mean, these are emergencies, and these are very extraordinary situation. And during normal times, you don't get that opportunity. But it reinforces the age old, the traditional concept about journalism, that once you are you're with the people, instead of just skimming the surfaces of markets, or sensationalism. Instead of that, you come back to the people, address the real needs of the people. People,
Mhm.
you will be popular, you will remain in people. I mean, in currency, at least if you're not going to make the ratings go up like anything. You will remain important, and you will remain indispensable to people's lives. I think that is the most important lesson that we get from this.
Hmm. And the final question, and you can even answer this in Malayalam if you wish. But I know that several journalists, especially in print media across the country, have been impacted in terms of salary cuts and job losses and so on. What would you suggest to them with your experience? What do you think they could be doing to keep their lives and livelihood on a firm footing?
But I think it's a very difficult situation. Even some of the best media organizations are having, salary cuts and other things, and they are going all on a cost cutting operations are already on the, especially in even top class. I know about what happened in various other media organizations. Some of them have closed down. So I think, but I don't know what actually they have to. But the thing is, the most important point is that these are very difficult times. At least, unless you have your own, you have to think about other options and other possibilities, not that you have to move out from this profession, but but to find out certain other alternatives is the most important point. That you are no more in a comfort zone. You are you have to you have to explore other possibilities, and you have to keep your eyes open, ears open, and that's the most important. There's no, it's a very tough time for everybody, and for us too. We are not out of it. We are right in the middle of this problem. So I don't know. I don't have an exact magic bullet kind of answer, but you have to keep looking outside.
Am I to presume that these job losses and salary cuts have not happened much in Kerala media yet?
Not quite as yet, but at the same time, we know what's coming, because there could be. This is absolutely certain that some of the newspapers, the smaller newspapers, are likely to be folded up, and some of the television channels, except for the top two or top one or two or three, the other television channels also will have an extremely difficult situation. And even the top media organizations have already started, thinking on about salary cuts and some kind of reductions. So I think it's going to be difficult, and the next 2 years, as you know, it's going to be extremely difficult for the global economy as well as in Kerala, especially because we have going to have a major dip in remittances, and it was
Yeah.
about 5 crore about few years back. Now this is going to, so as you know, the Kerala economy is very much dependent and extremely dependent on this remittance. And so in
Yeah.
Kerala, this is going to be difficult. And migrant labor, they are going to have an extremely difficult.
Well,
All of us together in this.
yeah. Well, Mr. MG Radhakrishnan, editor-in-chief of Asianet News, that was wonderful to hear. You were absolutely articulate and wonderful in articulating Kerala's unique position in this country just now, both in terms of government, in terms of media, and therefore I thank you very much for your insight and wisdom, Mr. Radhakrishnan. Thank you so much.
Thank you, KP. I'm sorry that I couldn't come out with a clear answer to many of your questions, but these are times when you have all the certainties are gone for a six. So let's
Not a
wait
problem.
and see.
Not a problem. But thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, KP.
Thank you.